So we have state education ministries and education ministers. So these are the people that are responsible for all of this, right? Administrative level, at a course level, syllabus level, at all the levels, the education ministry is there. They've got education secretaries, and then they've got their secretaries. Everybody's got their secretaries, and so this is how it is usually run. And then there are levels. If you finish some IS or whatever, you go into this education ministry and you work. First question is, what are these people doing? Yeah. Why in the world are they setting crazy syllabus for students that doesn't really help them at all? Why are the committees they forming the syllabuses so out of touch with reality? It does pain me a little bit to know that this is how it is. Why is it for teacher selection there are issues? Why are PTAs a problem? Why are teachers' attendance a problem? Why is the hiring model of teachers a problem? All this does fall at the feet of the education ministry. So the first thing I'm going to say is about the hiring of teachers, right? So now we all know, basically, I hope everybody knows, that there are a lot of illegal practices that go on in hiring practices, in teachers hiring. Not everybody goes through the illegal means, but a lot of it happens through legal means, and it's unfortunate, but it happens, right? First of all, here's how teaching should be. Teaching should have consequences. If you teach well, students get more marks or do better in life, you get promoted faster. If they don't do better, the question then becomes, is it a problem of the teacher, or are the students the problem, or the infrastructure the problem? The last place to look at is the teachers. I agree. Last place to blame something will be the teachers, because they're the human element, right? But they should have to face some consequences. Our system today just has no consequences. They can have 10 students, of which 3 have the possibility of passing, but even if everybody fails, when the pay revision comes, they still get the pay revision. The point is not that the students, there were 10 in the class and 3 had the possibility of passing. The point is everybody failed. Even the 3 that had a possibility failed. So why is that? Is it because those 3 didn't do everything well? Or is it because the teaching was not good? We need to have consequences for actions. And teachers should feel the brunt of it. I extend this to education ministers even, or people working in the education ministry even. They all should face some consequences of their actions. The reason I say this is because there are places where, remote places, where when a teacher gets a government job, they get reassigned, or when they get a promotion, they get reassigned. And you know what they do? They take leave. They take health leave or whatever leaves. And they don't go there. During that 4-month health leave that they've taken, they look for a transfer to another school. You know, that creates one less teacher in the classroom. And this is not just a thing about village schools. Now, village schools are the people that suffer the most, because teachers do this very often. But transfers affect city schools also. The position that is vacated is not filled. And we all know what the reasons are. But in the villages, many of these teachers, they don't go. Those students suffer. Now, this is very specific to the government schools. In private schools, this will be very much controlled. I mean, this will not fly, because if you don't really attend school, you'll be kicked off, you'll be sent home, you'll be fired. The government system just does not do that. It doesn't fire anybody. And I think that's an issue. This is what I talk about when I'm saying consequence-based teaching. So let's say a person got a transfer to a place. They don't like the transfer place. Okay. Compulsorily work there for a year. But in the meantime, get a transfer. Let there be a regulation in place that the person that has asked for transfer in a reasonable time frame should be transferred, basically. I mean, we can do that. I'm not against that. I'm not against people asking for a transfer. I'm against people that don't work. accumulate their sick leaves and then they do this kind of thing. This should be avoided. Yeah, this should be avoided. A genuine sick leave is a very different thing. But this kind of nonsense should be avoided. Now, one of the reasons why I say accountability is important is because when you look at village schools or even mildly government schools in general, the lab facilities in these places are very terrible. And one thing I've noticed is that the reason for this is not because the government does not supply the correct equipments or whatever. The government supplies the PTA. The PTA is basically run by the rowdies and the gang leaders of an area. It seems that all of these lab equipments are routed through the PTA. What the PTA does is they take it and they sell it in the black market, make money, and they give nothing to the schools. And this is a problem, right? I don't know what the regulations for the PTA are, who can be a PTA member, but at the very least, we should give PTA role only to a parent of a student, firstly. Secondly, if this is the practice of the PTA member should be changed every 2 years. And no PTA member can repeat his role over a period of 10 years. They cannot occupy a PTA member role for 10 years after their time is finished. These are harsh regulations, but these are absolutely necessary regulations. This is the only way we can save our government schools, because our taxpayers' money is going into it. But if this is how it is run, we have to change. And if the problem is not that the government is not doing anything, the problem is that local bodies and ground level workers are itself doing all this kind of nonsense, we need to change a lot of things. Now, I understand that at a macro level, our state governments are also doing all kinds of nonsense in the education ministry, but the problem in the education system is not just macro, it's micro also. Micro problems are in fact more damaging than the macro problems, in my opinion, because they have completely denied anything. An imperfect macro system can be accepted. A good imperfect macro system can be affected. But a terrible micro system is terrible anyway, irrespective of the goodness of the macro model. The micro model, if it is terrible, the whole system just collapses. That's what's happening. And things like this have to change. Absolutely. Now, people that have heard this conversation today, that I've given you all, will think, okay, it would be better if one person had control to all of this. Well, nonsense. It is good that the states hold the education ministry, not the central government. Because think about it. The central government changes every 5 years. Yeah? If suppose that central government comes in and changes the education policy like crazy, that affects 1 billion people. If there's a terrible state government, okay, that affects like maybe 50 million people. Or 100 million people at the most. But if you have a centralized education system for the country, one wrong government will kill 1 billion people. I mean, the stakes are too high for this to be centralized at the federal level. So this argument of having one education system all over the country is nonsense, in my opinion. It's not helpful. Again, it's not helpful. Because, the way these systems can be corrupted is just so huge. I just talked about the PTA and the teachers' problem, the problem with the state government education system. I didn't go deep into it because it's a bag of worms. That's it. It's a bag of worms. But the impact is reduced depending on the state, right? There are some states that have their education system running very well and it's profiting the children. but some states aren't. If you just bring everything together in one country, the whole country will either go good or the whole country will go bad. That's not good. That's not good at all. The other thing is the question of native language, right? The idea of studying the native language alone is problematic with a lot of people, because I do think we need to preserve the diversity of languages that we have. When you look at countries like Russia or China that have crushed the dialects, it's sad, you know. Chinese, before the Communist Party government, had a lot of dialects, and they still do, but a lot of it has been just subsided. Russia, same thing. A lot of unique languages. It's crushed. And, it's actually sad, because cultural identity, linguistic identity is very important, and we're losing that. So I do think this is bad for that. History, right? You have to understand that our country was made in 1947. The idea of India was not really an Indian idea, it was a European idea. The Europeans thought, okay, Indians have spices, that's it. You have to understand that throughout the lifetime, for as long as there is recorded history, if you look at today's map of India, okay, and then include Afghanistan and all those places that are there before independence, you have to understand that no one king held all the land from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Not one person has ever held the land. The closest that came to ruling all the land was Ashoka. Even Ashoka couldn't conquer all of South India. Even he couldn't conquer all of South India. So you have to understand that the historical contexts are very important. We were a country that was formed from 576 princely states. I think my numbers are a little bit off, but 570 something. We're a country that's formed from 575 princely states. Yeah, there's a lot of diverse history, and we will lose this if there's only one education in the whole country. If you look at South India, there have been so many strong and powerful kings. You will not include that. North India has got so many different powerful kings over this period of time. The only difference is that many of the kings that were powerful were able to rule more land in North India. And so a lot of the North Indian regions were kind of united. The other problem with just having one education system is that if one person taints the history of the education, it affects everybody. Another person will come and say, you're lying. The person who first wrote will say, you are lying. And so we don't know who's lying and who's telling the truth. And so the problem is not that everybody's lying, because the people are intelligent enough to figure out the truth. The problem is that when you make these ambiguities, it affects 1 billion people. At the state level, you can control the fallout because the numbers are smaller. This is why decentralization is crucial to the Indian education system. Absolutely crucial. So even if I have problems with the state government doing this and doing that, I think it's achievable. I think the state government, for me to do some kind of activism and bring about change in the education system, is so much easier if I have to deal with the state government than with the central government. Because the state government rules small principalities, small districts and half a district, and my voice is better heard through the state government than through the central government. Absolutely. Decentralization is crucial, in my opinion. And this concept of centralization is dangerous, very dangerous. I think we will lose our original identities, and then we will have a reshaped identity, which I think a lot of people will not accept. Pretty much what I wanted to say about the education system. I think there is more conversation to this. There is absolutely so much more to delve into of how we can solve each and every issue. Hopefully this video or this audio reaches people in government, because I think some of these proposals are extremely possible, and they're just common sense. I mean, especially the language part, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. I mean, those are a given. That should be done, like today. It's crazy that it's not done. So, I hope we can reach that person. I'm not very popular, but hopefully we can reach. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Consider liking the video and comment if you have an opinion. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos of this kind. Thank you.